lontana assai me ne voglio domai e posso incontrare più ma io voglio urdo cielo tutte canzoni amare me voglio scurde Napoli me voglio scurde mamma me voglio scurde te non voglio più notizie d'amici e de parente non voglio sapere niente e che la cosa fa voglio scordar do cielo tutte canzoni amare me voglio scurde Napoli me voglio scurde mamma me voglio scurde te ma quanto è bella Napoli, stanotte è bella assai, non l'ho già vista mai, più belle come amore. Come castordo cielo, tutte canzoni amare, come me scurde Napoli, come me scurde mamma, come me scurde te.
One, my student's message. Hi, Maestro. I just imitated Francesco Albanese in A Canzone e Napoli using the instructions you gave me yesterday. I especially corrected the posture of my neck and back, just as you showed me, and as Joseph Schmidt does in his performance videos. It's a posture also adopted by Gigli and especially Delmonico. I kept the volume to a minimum and focused on letting everything resonate in the chest and abdomen. Of course, these changes don't happen overnight, but I'm sending you the recording so you can tell me if I've understood correctly. In general, by adjusting my posture and imagining that my voice is above the breath and that the breath is in the chest and abdomen, as when listening to Albanese, I feel the following benefits. Much deeper engagement of the chest and abdomen, a rounder and more centered sound. Vowels open naturally, like Albanese. Always supported. On certain notes, I really feel the front part of the abdomen, the 7 o'clock position on the breath clock, strongly involved. Since I met you and started studying with you, and especially since I first imitated Albanese 3 months ago, I'm more and more convinced that he is the tenor who will help me most to fix my breath and my voice. Looking forward to your feedback. Thank you, Maestro. 2. My response. This is the best you've sung so far. With your current internal physical structure, you've worked very hard and tried your best to utilize the breath from your abdomen. Well done. You've also become aware of the importance of the front lower abdomen at the 7 o'clock position on my breath clock. What I want to emphasize is that abdominal breathing exercises are not something that can be mastered overnight. They require persistence and the correct method. If you are using the right method, you'll notice an improvement in your singing as early as tomorrow morning. If you don't feel anything, then your breath training has not been effective. The correct method is absolutely essential. Sadly, I must say that in the entire history of humanity, none of the so-called breath training methods have truly worked. If any of them had worked, we would have had thousands of Carusos by now. So, why do people say Caruso was exceptional, yet no one has been able to truly learn or imitate him? It's because vocal pedagogy is flawed, and because some former professional singers who used incorrect technique themselves have now become teachers. If they never mastered correct breathing themselves, how could they possibly teach their students to breathe correctly? Created two images, one showing Caruso's internal structure and the other showing my students. In Caruso's body, the breath is evenly distributed, with most of the airflow located below the vocal folds. In contrast, when my student sings, most of the breath is above the vocal folds, and that is exactly the problem. Looking at his internal breath column, it is extremely narrow. With such a thin column of breath, it's impossible to achieve a free and continuous flow from the vocal folds down to the bottom of the abdomen. Without that flow, it's impossible to awaken sufficient resonance in the chest and abdominal cavities. Since the breath from the chest and abdomen is not driving the voice, the resonating chambers above the mouth inevitably try to compensate and take over the role of breath support. And once the resonating spaces start acting as breath support, the result is unavoidable. The singing becomes inconsistent, sometimes loud, sometimes soft. The breath line breaks. Sometimes there's airflow, sometimes there isn't. At times, my student even stops singing altogether or sings in a very faint voice. This is the current issue my student is facing. Nevertheless, it's essential to stay committed to the correct sensation that has recently been discovered and to keep training. The first goal is to build a larger, thicker internal breath column. Only after that should we begin working on other vocal techniques.